fear and rejection in business, how to maintain your commitment in your business enterprise in the face of adversity. Again, go to Paul Montelongo Live, and you can see the show live streaming. I think that we'll start out, Heather, by just acknowledging the obvious here that's going on in the country.
Yeah.
With the Boston Marathon bombing on Monday, and now the Boston authorities have actually killed one of the suspects as of last night, and as of the airing of this show, 2 p.m. Pacific on Friday, the other suspect, the brother, is still at large, and so there's a kind of a lockdown in the city over there.
Yeah.
Until they get this guy. So I thought it'd be appropriate if we just take a second and just acknowledge this tragedy for those people that were affected by the bombing and injured, and the young boy that was killed. And our hearts and our thoughts all go out to the people in that area from our entire show.
Yeah, absolutely. Condolences to everyone who's been affected.
Yeah, and it is a pressing issue, and hopefully that issue will get resolved very, very soon in a way that is safe for the citizens of Boston in that area.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's go forward, and this interestingly enough relates to our theme today, Heather, and that is we're going to talk about the three main areas that seem to cause people in business to stop progressing, or it prevents them from moving forward, and that is fear, that is rejection, and that is a failure to fulfill their commitment to the business.
Yeah, definitely.
And so we're going to talk with our guest today, Tom Justin, about this and the steps and strategies and techniques for overcoming fear, managing fear. In order to do that, I thought I'd just take a moment. And, there's a lot of information on the internet about the fears that humans have. And
there's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them. And it depends on the survey that you look at. That the top fear could be flying, could be public speaking, could be the fear of rejection, fear of commitment.
Yeah. Well, I've heard a lot about the fear of public speaking being the number one fear. In fact, there was that old Seinfeld joke. I don't know if you remember it. He said, fear of public speaking is the number one fear, and death is too. So if you're going to a funeral, you're better off in the casket than delivering the eulogy.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people would agree with that.
An interesting thing, though, has surfaced, and that is one of the fears that kept coming up on these surveys, and it's a new fear that's been added, and that is the fear of terrorism.
Wow. Okay.
And so, with the events in the world that have taken place over the last 10 years or so, we can see how that fear has emerged.
Yeah.
Now, we want to talk about this today with our guest about how that relates to business and the fear of terrorism. Because, like, for example, the Boston Marathon is a business.
Yeah.
I mean, it has vendors. It has affiliates. It has advertisers. It has customers, and the city could go into a state of fear, or the organizers of the Boston Marathon, for example, could go into a state of fear that would jeopardize the business of the Boston Marathon.
Yeah, and other businesses looking at that, other cities looking at that, can go into a state of fear. What if it happens here?
Right.
I mean, we've heard talk here locally. What if it happens in Vegas?
Right, exactly. So there are some myths about fear, though, that I think we want to address, and that is, for example, one myth about fear is that most fears are rational. In other words, there's a reason or a justification to it.
Well, there's a reason for some fears.
There's a reason for some fears. But what we find, and I'm sure that our expert today will help us validate this, and that is that most fears, especially in business, because this is a business show, right? So especially in business, most fears are without genuine foundation.
Yeah. I always thought the two stupidest fears in the world were fear of failure and fear of success. And almost everyone has those two in some combination. But if you don't do something because you're afraid of failing, you've already failed. So what's the point of being afraid?
Right. And, there's a question that I like to ask, and that is, what's the worst that can happen?
Right.
I mean, what's the worst that can happen if you go into business with a plan, you have a commitment to that plan, and you start laying out that plan and working through that plan, and then you fail?
Then you learned what didn't work and you do something else.
That's right. So it's just another, how many times have we heard of businesses that have had a successful product after a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen failures of that product?
Well, light bulb.
Became a learning experience, right?
Yeah.
The other thing is, what's the worst that can happen if you're absolutely highly successful in your business? In other words, your commitment to the business works. Your plan worked. Your product actually sells. You actually make a lot of money on your product, and you become successful. Why do you think people are so afraid of that?
It's a stupid fear, but the thing is, it's getting them out of their comfort zone. And there's a reason why we call it the comfort zone. It's comfortable. People want to be comfortable. So, yeah, but it doesn't make sense. You go into business to be successful, so why be afraid of it?
Exactly. And, people magnify the results or the ill effects of that success because they were told as youngsters a set of beliefs, or society instilled in them a set of beliefs about successful people. They're greedy.
Yeah.
They, you pay too much taxes. Money doesn't make you happy.
Yeah.
All of those.
Money is the root of all evil.
Right. Yeah. All of those false beliefs that prevent people from being truly successful because they buy into that belief.
Yeah, they don't want to be one of those guys.
Because it's comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a stretch. It's a stretch. Money will test you. Money can stretch you.
Yeah.
And the acquisition of money and the acquisition of success can stretch you. Yeah, I said that out loud, right? All right.
That too.
All right. So those are some of the things that we're going to talk about today in our show today. And when we come back after these messages, we're going to introduce our guests, and we're going to talk about fear, specifically in the first segment, how to manage fear, what most people are afraid of, how to really get a grasp on it, and how to let it serve you right after these messages.
Call us with your questions at 731-1230. Now, here again, the host of Get a Grip Business Radio, Paul Montelongo.
Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here.
Welcome back to the Paul Montelongo Get a Grip Business Show. I'm Paul Montelongo, here with Heather Vale-Goss, and we have our guest that we'll introduce in just a moment. If you want to watch the show, listen to it live at paulmontelongolive.com. Also follow me on Twitter at Paul Montelongo, and Paul Montelongo Fan on Facebook, Paul Montelongo Fan. So we're talking about this subject of fear and how it guides so many people, especially in business. And there's so many fears in business that people can have that will actually sabotage their success. It's a very simple one is like the fear of making a cold call.
Oh, that's a big one, for salespeople.
Right, and if you're a salesperson and you've got that kind of fear, that's a thing you need to manage, right?
Yeah.
The fear of growth, right? Of business growth. Another key one in business is the fear of letting go, right? So like not micromanaging, not having to manage every single minute detail.
Yeah.
So and trusting the people that are around you to do their job and to grow and promote the company that you started to actually be a participant in your commitment of that company. And that's a huge fear. I think that a lot of executives don't really reach their full potential in company growth because they hold on too tightly.
Yeah.
They're like control freaks.
So that kind of links those two, the fear of growth and the fear of letting go, kind of go hand in hand.
Exactly. So let's get into our interview with our expert here, Tom Justin. Tell us about Tom here.
Tom Justin is a longtime professional speaker, trainer, consultant, and the author of How to Take No for an Answer and Still Succeed, a book about turning everyday rejection into profit. As a kid, he was painfully shy, but he was able to change all that around and become first a successful salesman and sales trainer, and later a writer, producer, journalist, and entrepreneurial advisor, working with such companies as American Airlines, Century 21, Entrepreneur Magazine, and more. Along the way, he's appeared on numerous radio and TV talk shows before this one. His expertise is sales and attitudinal training. Tom, thanks so much for being here with us.
Hey, great to be with you.
Tom, welcome. Welcome to the
Thank
Paul
you.
Montelongo Show.
It's the first time I've ever done a radio show where I had to get a haircut before I went in the studio.
That's because we work so hard on having radio appearance here, don't we?
Yeah.
Actually, that was for our viewers online. Thank you for that. So, yeah, this is a great topic. You know, you've written a very a profound book, How to Take No for an Answer and Still Succeed. You know, the manual for managing fear and rejection. All right. So let's talk about, first of all, this this new fear that has surfaced in all of these lists that are online now, or in many of the lists, about the fear of terrorism. But of course, I want to direct it specifically toward the business side of it, the business angle. Any business, I suppose, could subject themselves to the fear of terrorism if they allowed. How does a business now manage this newfound fear of terrorism in the world?
Well, years ago, I came up with an acronym for fear. I heard it for years as false evidence appearing real. But when I looked at it again, it's really first evaluate according to risk, FEAR. And so you look. There are a lot of unrealistic fears. When you were, if you were in an airplane on 9/11, the odds of you being a victim were infinitesimal because millions and millions of people were simultaneously on airlines. After 9/11, I happened to be on a trip. I was in a family reunion up in the mountains. And so the very first day that we could fly, I was delayed already a day, so I flew out on a flight from Boise, Idaho, back to Los Angeles. And that flight was normally always full. And this day, about 50% of the seats were taken. But there was a camaraderie in that airplane that was really powerful. I mean, everybody was aware, looking around, friendly with one another, friendly with the crew, and it felt like, hey, we're in this together. And the people who got on that flight conquered whatever fears and feelings that they had and flew. But they had an attitude like, come and get it. You know, we're not going to let this happen to us. And so that evaluation, you know, is key to to overcoming that fear, whatever it is that you fear in business and terrorism, whatever it might be. You've got to evaluate according to the risk.
Okay, so the evaluation is a key component in our businesses. Let's say that we've laid out a business plan. Let's say that we've got an idea, and let's just say it's a really legitimate idea for the marketplace. Okay, and there's a need. We're serving a need. But now it's time to really pull the trigger, right? Like, I've actually got to take this out onto the streets and sell it. What is the thing that stops most business people? More importantly, how do they manage it? How do they get through it?
Fear of risk. I mean, what's the risk? You've got, all of a sudden now you've got stuff on the line. You've got money on the line. You've got your reputation on the line. And to move forward now will be a risk. So if you've made a good plan, you have to evaluate the plan. How good is the plan? How comfortable do you feel with it? And then you pull that trigger and you go for it. I mean, the winners in life, the people who have had the most successes in life, everyone that I know who's a real winner, and you're a good example of that, had failure after failure. They're the ones with the most no's, the most rejections in life usually. But they failed up. They kept going. And you have to take the no's and the failures to get to where you want to go.
So what I'm hearing you say is that you take the failure, quote unquote failure,
Yeah.
and it's not really a failure.
Right, it's not.
It's a learning experience.
Yeah, it's a stepping stone.
It's a stepping stone,
Right.
right? Exactly. It's a way to get better, do something different, grow, etc.
I'm kind of amazed sometimes because I've coached a lot of top corporate executives, senior VPs, and some CEOs of companies that were doing very well. And while they were all successful because they took risks, many of them reached a certain point where they knew that they took another risk, their failure would now be very evident to a lot of people.
Okay.
And so you think somebody who's reached that level of success is now they're on their way, they're cooking, they're doing all the right stuff. But a lot of those people are terrified because what happens now if they fail? All these people are going to see it, and if you have a publicly held company, those people are going to see it. I had a guy come back to me after a seminar that we gave one year, several years ago, and he said he was a trader on the commodities exchange in Chicago, and he said, He said, I make over $250,000 a year. And he said, I didn't realize I was a failure until I went to your seminar. I said, how do you explain? And that's when he pointed out that he's now visible. He's managing people. He was now visible. And so now any move that he made was going to be talked about, analyzed and discussed, and his movement up the management ladder was going to be determined upon his actions. And
in other words, he was going to be exposed.
Yeah,
whatever he did was going to now be.
That's right.
Seen by the world, right?
And he said he took risks all the way up the ladder until that point, and he had stalled for 2 years. And when he realized that, it wasn't any specific thing except the awareness of it and the realization of it. He said, I started taking action again, and he said, I doubled my income in the next 6 months.
Okay, good. So do you find, you've coached a lot of executives, business owners, CEOs, etc. Do you find that they have a frail ego?
Some do. Sure. Nobody wants to fail, but some people get a little. What happens is people get a sense that they have control. And so you reach a certain level of success and you think, okay, this is great, I'm cooking. It's kind of the opposite of what I just talked about. Somebody who thinks that they've really got it in hand. And what happens is control is an illusion. All we can control is our thoughts and our actions.
The way we respond to an event.
That's right.
Okay.
We can't control what anybody thinks of us. A friend of mine wrote a book years ago, said, what you think of me is none of my business. And I told her the day after I got the book, I said, that's a great book. And she said, you read it already? I said, no, all I needed was the title.
Great title.
Who
cares what's inside?
Validation.
I said, nobody has to buy the book. Just see the title in the bookstore. You're fine.
That's true. That's true. Is that one of the biggest fears you think? And I want to talk specifically about business owners, entrepreneurs, people who start businesses, people who employ other people. Sure. In other words, the people in this country who drive the economy. The people who I think, personally, we need more of. Absolutely. Thousands and thousands and thousands of more of these kinds of people that actually fuel the economy, right? So what is their biggest fear? What is the thing that they need to overcome or at least be aware of so that they can manage to grow their business?
Personal. Can I do it? Who am I to think that I could do this?
Okay.
You reach that point.
So it's a self-esteem issue?
Well, it's self-esteem, but it's also they start to evaluate themselves and think, well, I don't have that much experience. Like there are several spots here in Las Vegas I've noticed over the last 10, 11 years that I've lived here that have had, especially restaurants, where 3 or 4 restaurants have resided in that same building, that same location, and they go out of business. Boom, boom, boom. Somebody comes in and says, I can do better. And there's one I went to the other day on Sahara up here, I was in there in the previous restaurant, one of the previous restaurants, and it was always about a third full or almost empty. This one is cooking, and they told me that they're full all the time. So somebody came in with a different idea, a better idea, and not only the idea but execution. So once you do it, once you commit to doing it, then you've got to execute. You've got to keep doing it. You've got to keep going. And that's where some people stop. They think, hey, I'm comfortable now. I'm making this money. Things are going nice. I don't have to do anything more. Don't have to do that much.
And they lose their sharpness.
They lose it entirely.
They lose their awareness. Yeah,
that's
great
right.
point. Great point.
So
and awareness is an important point, too.
So it's not just about location when it comes to restaurants. It's about mindset.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah, good. When we come back, we're going to talk more about fear, and we're going to talk about rejection also, and this whole idea of rejection in business. All right, when we come back with Tom Justin on the Paul Montelongo Show. Be right back.
This is Get a Grip Business Radio. Call us with your questions at 731-1230. Now, here again, your host, Paul Montelongo.
Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started.
Welcome back to Paul Montelongo Show. Get a Grip Business Show. I'm here with Tom Justin, our special guest, and also Heather Vale Goss, my co-host. And so we're talking about this idea of fear and the top fears that keep surfacing when you look at what's on the internet in terms of the surveys and stuff. Such. There's a couple of them there that just kind of stuck out to me, and they seem so closely related. It's like they're first cousins or siblings or something like that. Yeah, fear siblings. How you like that right there? So, like the fear of intimacy, the fear of rejection, and the fear of commitment. We'll talk about fear of commitment in a moment, but like the fear of intimacy and the fear of rejection. Now, if you've got those two fears going on in your life, the fear of intimacy and the fear of rejection, and like they're really magnified, you're going to be a lonely person.
Very lonely.
I think.
Yeah.
I think so. But since the fear of rejection is one of the main fears that continues to surface in the surveys, I find that business people have that as well. The fear of rejection. What is the fear of rejection? What is its root? And how does a person get through that?
Well, first of all, they have to see themselves for what they are at that moment. They're somebody who has an idea, they want to move forward, but they have to assess their fears. And there are three things you should do when you feel that. You know that you're not moving ahead. You don't know why. You haven't really figured it out. You don't have anybody there to share that you trust or that you can confide in who will tell you or suggest to you. So the first thing I suggest you do is take a small action. It doesn't have to be huge. It can be as little as setting up a Twitter account for your business or a fan page on Facebook, something like that, or putting together an email program that you're going to take action on, sending out emails and announcing what you're going to do. You don't have to send it right away, but do those and get them ready.
Or picking up the phone and calling a client and just saying, hey, thanks for being my customer.
Oh, that's big.
I don't necessarily need to sell them anything in that moment if I'm taken by fear, but I know that the connection with that client gives me some reinforcement and gives me a foundation to call them back later.
Yeah, and there's
Small
no
action.
rejection in that.
Exactly.
Right.
You're not
Right.
opening yourself up for that, right?
Yeah.
It's just we're reconnecting, right?
Yeah.
And I know people have told me over the years that they confused action with results, and they were doing neutral actions. Pick up the phone and call friends and call people they already know to be doing something. And my suggestion was, if you feel like doing that, then ask those friends, who do you know that could use this kind of business or
Sure.
could use my services? How can I help you?
Sure.
The
first one was take a small action. You said, okay.
Take some small action.
Okay.
And then notice the result. First of all, notice your feeling about how you felt when you took that action. And it's an action that can create a result. And then put that action into, or implement that action. Do something with it. If you put together, let's say, an autoresponder, for those of you who don't know the internet, those are a series of emails that go out automatically to your list. So let's say you put together 3 or 4 autoresponders. Well, send those 3 letters manually to people that you know or who are on your list, and then give them a call, follow up, start taking action on that, and understand that if you get rejected for any reason whatsoever, that you then back up and you can now reassess. Because until you get rejected, until you have a little failure in your life, you can't assess what you're doing. And like you said, it's a learning experience. So you learn with the failure. And don't ever take it personally.
Don't take it personally.
Never take it personally. And look back at your failures in life and the things. I went back as part of my assessment when I first came on these concepts. I flunked the 7th grade. And I thought everybody knew that I was the dumbest kid in school. And I flunked the 7th grade because I was ill for part of the year. I couldn't catch up. I started to see myself as stupid. I started to have that visualization of myself as not complete.
And it became a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And ironically, I mean, this happened not only all the way through school and through college. I didn't finish college because I didn't think I could. And I got excited about doing other things, so I did other things. But years later, I realized that I had gone through my life not telling people the year that I actually graduated from high school. If it ever came up, I said I graduated.
So they wouldn't
the
do
year
the
before.
math and judge you.
Exactly.
Wow.
Isn't that funny?
And
I think that's important too. I mean, you make a great point that those are the little stories we tell ourselves.
That's right.
That's the story we play in our head, and
Yeah.
that's why we succumb to rejection. Is because that person's not going to like me. They're not going to buy. They're going to judge me, etc. And I like your 3 steps: a small action, feel the feeling, and then take another follow-up action, and then don't take it personal.
And be conscious of your negative stories.
Right.
Yeah, so speaking of that, Tom, we were talking last week about every no being a stepping stone towards a yes, and salespeople having to deal with that. But if you get in your mind you get consumed by those no's, then it can stop you exactly the way you were talking about now. So how do you how do you coach your clients to deal with those no's?
Well, first of all, I tell them to expect them. You're
Okay.
going to get rejected. You're going to get the no's no matter what you do. And I also do this. I've had sales trainers that I've coached, and I said, don't train your salespeople that everything's going to be rosy. Get them ready for rejection.
The realities of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's called positive negative thinking.
Okay.
Positive, negative thinking. I like that. My brain is confused, but I think that's the point, right? It's like
Sure.
because fear, rejection becomes a pattern, and when we intercept that pattern, then we can have a new way of thinking.
Yeah.
Right.
Pattern interrupt. Yeah.
Yeah, and look at the plateau you're on. Everybody is on a plateau of some kind. It's a launching pad to the next step, or it's a place where they die. Die business-wise.
Right.
So either whatever plateau you're on, look at it as a launching pad. This is where you launch to the next level. And it is that. So what do you need to do to launch? What do you need to put around you? And don't put too much. Just get enough. Just get that thing going. You're not
Yeah.
going to crash. You got a
Right.
parachute.
I think you're right there, in that we amplify the story in our head. It's like, this is the worst that could happen, and it is a matter of, do you find that it's the story we tell ourselves about the event? For example, like, I have a buddy that years ago he got a divorce, and so when it was final, he walked down the court step. He rented a convertible Mustang, and he had it parked out front. He had somebody waiting, parked out front. He walked down the courthouse steps. He spreads his arms open wide up, and he goes, "Next!"
Oh my God. Okay.
That's a Facebook picture.
That's our marriage counseling section right there. Right. But
That'll be
I mean,
$27. Thank
yeah,
you very
but
much.
that was the way that he arranged the story in his head.
Yeah.
Right. I go to a sales call, or a person goes to a sales call and they don't make the sale. All right. The story now becomes one of two things. Oh, my sales skills suck. Or, okay, what did I learn? How can I tweak it?
Yeah.
They're not ready. See?
I love that phrase. I think it came from Zig Ziglar. Some will, some won't. So what? Next.
Right. 4-letter word, next.
Yeah.
So I want to make this offer to our listeners, and that is, if you're listening to the show right now, you can download immediately a special briefing that Tom has on his website. The website is howtotakeno.com, and the special briefing is called How to Use the Power of No. So in that report, you are in fact saying that no can be quite a powerful, motivating, driving force for us.
It really is. It's a positive, negative thing. You can really use it to advance yourself. And when you see these, by the way, this is material. It's not in the How to Take No book, so it's not something I copied off the book, and I think you'll find it valuable.
Okay, great. Special material. So when we come back, we're going to talk about this matter of commitment and following through on our commitments in business. And of course, it translates to our entire life, but let's keep it specifically with our business and how to follow through on those commitments when we get back on the Paul Montelongo Show.
Is radio. Call us with your questions at 731-1230. Now, here again, your host, Paul Montelongo.
Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started.
Welcome back to Paul Montelongo Get a Grip Business Show. The American Free Enterprise System is encouraged, endorsed, and hard at work. I'm here with my co-host, Heather Vale Goss.
Hello.
Our special guest, Tom Justin. We're talking about fear, rejection, commitment. Earlier today on Facebook and Twitter, I tweeted, if you would tell me what your biggest fear is, the best answer gets a mention on today's show and a free autographed book from our guest, Tom. So I have selected Becca Osborne because she says her greatest fear, or the fear that she thinks is the greatest, is repeating past mistakes.
Oh, that's a good point.
That's very, very good.
Yeah.
So it's like, I made a mistake, and how do I get past the past?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So congratulations, Becca. We'll send you, Tom will autograph his book for you, and we will make sure that you get that in your lovely
It's coming.
hands.
I'm going to autograph it right here.
Another myth about fear is that I found interesting is, in order to deal effectively with fear, one has to hide, deny, or get rid of the fear.
A lot of people try to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The denial is something that is hidden because they don't realize that they're not taking action because they have a fear. Some people think, and I had one guy tell me, a client of mine, he said, I really don't have any fear. And by the time we got done with the session, we identified 3 real fears that he was that he had. And again, not
His
conscious.
fear was
to him.
saying that he had a fear.
Yeah.
My fear won't let me be afraid. But
funny.
he was not taking action, and he was held back, and he knew that he wasn't progressing, but he didn't think it was because of fear, and he didn't identify it clearly. So we have to identify, sometimes all by ourselves, on our own, we have to identify, what is that thing that's holding me back? What is that one thing? And it could be a number of things. It can be the fear of being seen as a failure, the fear of the personal angst that you have. I can't do that again. I don't want to make another mistake. And the way not to make another mistake is just don't take any action. Don't do anything.
Right. And then that just perpetuates itself into failure and less action, more fear.
Right. And people are people are psychologically not equipped sometimes to deal with that, and so they have to step back. And sometimes, like that Chicago Board of Trade guy that I told you about, just his awareness of that fact was enough to change his modality. He just changed his action and took a different attitude, a different mindset, as Heather was pointing out earlier.
And so this goes into this third segment that we want to talk about, and that is the fear of commitment or commitment issues that people have. And this is not a, Dr. Laura kind of
People just tuning in are going to think it's a relationship
show. We could certainly apply it there, I'm certain.
Just tell her you love her.
You're right. Let's talk about the fear of commitment and the fear of really dedicating oneself to the business of their business. Like, what kind of sacrifices will they make? What kind of effort, dedication will they put in? And why do some people not go full bore and really follow through on that original commitment they made to be in business?
Sure, and that's very much why some people say that you shouldn't do a business or do something like that unless you are passionate. And if you are passionate, you go for it. And it's true in relationships too. I know a lot of stories about people who said, I just, I didn't care about a lot of things, and then I really got excited about this particular thing, and I went for it. I saw a guy being interviewed on some TV show here in Las Vegas last year, and he said that he was going nowhere, and the only thing he loved was poker, and he wasn't very good at it. So he started studying poker, and then he ended up writing a book, creating seminars, positioning himself as an expert, even though he wasn't a terrific poker player. But all of a sudden, he became an expert because he was passionate about it, and people wanted to hear what he had to say about it.
Right,
and that's that kind of passion.
There's little to replace authentic passion.
But what about, Tom, sometimes, and we see this a lot, especially in the online business world, because it's so easy to get into it, and people, they start off with a passion. It's like, yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm going to have my online business, and they start buying all this stuff, learning how to do this, learning how to do that, and then they're so overwhelmed with research that, paralysis by analysis sets in, and they don't get past that. So how can they actually move past that stage?
Yeah, you're so right, Heather. That's a real distinct problem, especially in that world where there's so much to do. There's so much that you can do. So the more options you have, sometimes the worse it is for you.
Yeah.
Because it's like, what option? Which one is going to work? Which one won't work? And sometimes you just have to sit back and look at it all and just use your raw intuition and say which one feels best to me, and then concentrate on that and just do it. Don't buy another thing. If somebody has purchased a lot of stuff about how to do business online, just let me give you this $1 million tip. Stop it. Don't do any more.
Put down the book.
Don't buy another thing. Take what you already got and do it.
Take some action.
Oh, it's so important. We created a course several years ago, a couple of partners and I, about the very beginning things on the internet, the things that most people weren't training because they were just for the absolute newbies. And I talked to people over the years who said, I got that course and I took the first 2 sessions, but after that I was just confused. And it was amazing because that was their problem. That they stopped. They didn't go any further because they had too many choices and too many things. And the next shiny, bright object that comes into view, they go out and they print it $27, $297, $500.
Just to get more information. I think the idea of commitment is kind of like a muscle. You have a commitment muscle. You know, the more you work it out, the more you exercise it, the stronger it becomes, the easier it is to make the next decision, the next decision, the next decision.
That's a good.
It just continues to grow.
That's a real good analogy because it does. You can practice with things like that. You just practice being committed to something, even if it's being committed to doing one same thing every day. And you say, "I'm committed to doing this every single day." And amazing things can happen.
Build your muscle.
That's right.
Build your momentum. Good. And I want to make sure that our listeners have another opportunity to receive the special briefing that you've put together for them. Go to howtotakeno.com and download How to Use the Power of No, your special briefing on using the power of no. howtotakeno.com. Final thought from you, Tom Justin?
I will also be giving away a 1-hour coaching program.
Great.
Whether it's for your business or your personal life, you can select. And the way to get that is when you download the special report, How to Use the Power of No, you'll get a letter from me giving you the information. Respond to that letter. Tell me why you would like to have a coaching session, and I will select someone who writes back, and someone will get a free coaching session worth $250.
Wow.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Tom, appreciate you being on the show today. Your insights are valuable, very, very valuable about fear and about taking no to another level. And appreciate you being here, and our listeners. Make sure that you go to Tom's website, howtotakeno.com, download How to Use the Power of No, his special briefing. We'll be back after this message.
Finally, a business show that isn't boring. This is Get a Grip Business Radio. Here again, your host, Paul Montelongo.
Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started. Let's get it started.
Welcome back to Paul Montelongo Get a Grip Business Show. I'm Paul Montelongo. This show is where the American free enterprise system is encouraged, endorsed, and is hard at work, where serial entrepreneurship is a way of life. And we talk about what's real, what's profitable, and what works. Today we had on the show Tom Justin. That was a great guest, talking about fear and rejection and commitment.
Yeah, very powerful for business people especially.
And I hope our listeners download his special briefing. Of course, no Paul Montelongo show would be complete without the segment I call I'm Sexy and I Know It.
I'm sexy and I know it. I'm sexy and I know it.
So in this segment, I discuss businesses and people in the world who are sexy and they know it because of what they have done in business or in the world for humanity. Good stories about people who are sexy and they know it. Disney announced 2 days ago that their new plans, having previously purchased Lucasfilm for $4 billion, are not just to make a new trilogy of Star Wars episodes, but they're planning to make one Star Wars movie every single year.
Wow.
With offshoot films alternating with official new episodes. To date, the Star Wars enterprise, Lucasfilm, etc., there's an estimated $20 billion worth of sales. And maybe you know the story. It's like the studio told him that he could have the merchandise royalties, right? He could own all the merchandise. $20 billion later. So if you're a Star Wars fan, or are you a Star Wars geek?
Fanatic.
All right. You have that to look forward to from Disney, because Disney is sexy and they know it with Star Wars.
That's almost like taking the concept of movies and turning it into like a TV series.
Yeah, exactly. And there's another $20 billion sitting there ready and waiting. You know
Right. Yeah.
Time Magazine 2013 top most influential people in the world. Of those include titans such as Jay-Z, 42. He's an artist, hip-hop star, entrepreneur. His net worth is $500 million.
Nice.
Kevin Systrom, 29 years old, founder of Instagram. He's worth $400 million.
Really?
Taking pictures.
That's okay.
Taking
wow.
an application
Good for
to
him.
take pictures, $400 million net worth.
Huh.
It is a great country, right? He's sexy and he knows it. In the world of leaders, Rand Paul, 50, the Republican, who became famous for his filibuster on drones, the debate on drones. Like, okay, so anyway, Time Magazine says he's one of the most influential people.
Okay.
Other icons like Justin Timberlake made the list, 32, musician. He's now got a net worth of $100 million.
Wow.
LeBron James, basketball player, his net worth is about $90 million. So
Really?
all these influential people, they're sexy and they know it. Finally, the NBA playoffs are sexy and they know it. This is the time of year that I just absolutely love. So I'm going to get in my 1 minute of the NBA playoffs pitch.
We know you are.
Beginning tomorrow, the NBA playoffs, they start their run. The tournament starts its run. And so my picks are that the Spurs will win the West and the Heat will win the East. And in the finals, the Spurs will defeat the Heat in 6 games in the finals. Because the NBA playoffs are sexy and they know it, and the San Antonio Spurs are sexy and they know it.
All right, so if that comes true, we'll have some kind of celebration here in a couple of weeks.
Oh, you bet we will. You bet we will. Anyway, that's our show for today. I want to thank my guest, Tom Justin, once again, talking to us about the power of no. And I also want to thank my guest co-host here, Heather Vale Goss. And just a final word or two on fear and commitment and what we learned today, Heather.
Well, we learned a lot of great stuff about how to power through that rejection, power through the fears, and how a lot of fears are just irrational and you need to evaluate the risk. It's still mind-boggling to me how so many people give up when they're like so close to getting their goal.
Right. And they sabotage themselves.
Yeah.
And they don't move through to that next level. So it's an awareness thing.
Uh-huh.
It's a mindset thing. It's the story or the languaging that we put in our head about that event, how we process the event, whatever event it is that we thought could have been rejection. It can always be converted over to something positive. I mean, like the famous story of Mothers Against Drunk Drivers.
Yeah, absolutely.
So her child was killed by a drunk driver, and now she perhaps has saved millions and millions and millions of lives because of this inner passion. That's one example. Took a potentially negative situation, not that she's not in pain or in grief, but she took that situation, totally flipped it around, had a commitment, and followed through on that commitment. As an example. You know?
And when Tom talks about positive, negative thinking, we can say that's realistic thinking because life is full of positives and negatives, just like you just mentioned.
We create our own reality.
Yeah.
Create our own reality. So I want to thank you for listening in. I want to thank you for watching at paulmontelongolive.com. Make sure that you follow me on Twitter at Paul Montelongo. Give me your comments and about the show. And also follow me at Paul Montelongo Fan on Facebook. paulmontelongolive.com. You can see the show. And we will see you next week on the Paul Montelongo Get a Grip Business Show. Take care.
Take care.
Really good show.
Behind the scenes.
Really behind the scenes. Really good show. Thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you so much
for coming in today. Appreciate you being our host. Here's the book right now for Becca. We're going to make sure that Becca sends that. Becca, private Facebook message me your address, unless you want the world to know your address.
Or you can private message her and ask for it.
Or I can private message you. Private message me. Okay. That would be commitment.
Yeah,
I don't know.
you gotta commit to the private message.
I got to commit to the private message. I don't know if I'm there yet. Okay. Anyway, so congratulations, Becca. Great show. Make sure that you watch the replay. Tell all your friends and your enemies about the show, and we'll see you next week. All right.
We have a preview of next week?
We do have a preview of next week. Next week we have a very, very special guest. We're going to talk about internet marketing, social media, and the importance of it in our culture today. And also how it could go gravely wrong for you. Take care.